Yeah, good morning. Welcome to the Mega News AT6 News live from our studios located on the 10th Avenue Extension, Greater Estate. The news is also live on our social media handles, MBN360. My name is El Samuels. The headlines.
President Mahama to receive honorary degree from South Korea's Yonsei University. In business, GACL terminates McDan Aviation FBO deal over unpaid debt. And on the international front, Chinese national arrested over attempt to smuggle 2,000 queen ants from Kenya.
Now the news and details. The President, John Dramani Mahama, is set to receive an honorary degree from Yonsei University in South Korea in recognition of his leadership commitment to democratic governance and efforts to promote international cooperation.
The post highlighted that the honor underscores the strong and enduring ties between Ghana and South Korea, reflecting a shared commitment to education, innovation, and global partnership. The honorary degree acknowledges President Mahama's record of public service and his contributions to strengthening Ghana's international relations. President Mahama is currently on a 5-day working visit to South Korea, aimed at enhancing bilateral relations and exploring new opportunities for trade, investment, and technological cooperation. As part of the visit, President Mahama commissioned a modern liquefied petroleum gas vessel on Thursday, March 12, further cementing ties between the two nations in energy and industrial development.
The minority in Parliament has called on the Ministry of Interior to refund approximately 113 million Ghana cedis collected from applicants who failed to qualify for the recent Security Service recruitment exercise.
Without a doubt, the structure of this recruitment exercise is akin to a Ponzi scheme, criminally crafted to defraud over 500,000, 500,000 unemployed innocent Ghanaian youth. Having widely made recruitment into the security services a major NDC campaign promise in 2024, over 506,000 Ghanaian youth responded to the government's call in 2025 and applied to join various security services under the Ministry of Interior, namely Ghana Police Service, Ghana Immigration Service, Ghana National Fire Service, and the Ghana Prison Service. These young men and women, full of hope and patriotism, were made to believe that they were being offered genuine opportunity to serve their country and secure a dignified livelihood. However, the Minister for Interior, in a press conference yesterday at this same venue, to the utter shock of the nation, indicated that only 5,000 applicants will be recruited from this enormous pool of applicants. This revelation has left hundreds of thousands of hopeful applicants devastated, disillusioned, and feeling exploited. The fundamental question that must be asked is this: if the government intended to recruit only 5,000 personnel, as the Minister for Interior disclosed yesterday, why should the government go ahead to overpromise and lure over 506,000 unsuspecting young people to go through this costly and emotionally exhausting process? It is most unconscionable. Even more misleading and exploitative is the decision by this government, politically motivated decision, to increase recruitment age limits from 25 to 35 years. So as they were expanding the age limit from 25 in the previous status quo to 35, the signal to the whole Ghana is that now there's more space. So even additional 10-year-older people can apply. This policy shift trapped even more unemployed youth to apply. This government significantly expanded the applicant pool and heightened expectations among thousands of desperate but qualified young people seeking employment. Such a decision, ladies and gentlemen, was reckless, misguided, and intended to create the false impression of sufficient financial clearance to accommodate more applicants. We reiterate the cogent calls earlier made by the minority leader of the Minority Caucus, Honorable Osahin Alexander Kwamina Afenyomaki, and further call for the following urgent actions. Number one, and first, there must be an independent bipartisan probe into the entire centralized recruitment process for immediate and appropriate review before we continue. And number two, very, very importantly, responding to the plight of the 500,000 potential recruits who have been scammed, we demand the government must refund the application fees of 220 cedis per application form to all applicants who were disqualified.
The Minister of State in charge of Government Communication, Felix Kwakye Ofosu, has clarified that government does not cover maintenance or servicing costs for the private jet Jata owned by Ibrahim Mahama and used by his brother, the President, John Dramani Mahama, for some official trips.
According to him, the responsibility for maintaining the aircraft, including paying the pilots and other crew members, rests solely with its owner, while the state only covers operational expenses such as fuel and landing charges when the president uses the jets for official travel. Speaking on Eyewitness News on Thursday, March 12, Kwakye Ofosu explained that the arrangement helps the government avoid higher costs associated with chartering an aircraft for presidential trips. The president does not rent the aircraft, he only fuels it. The aircraft belongs to somebody, so the owner retains the services of the pilot and other personnel who work on it, he said. He further noted that renting an aircraft would require the government to pay rental fees in addition to fuel and maintenance costs for the period the aircraft is in use, a cost the government has avoided. When the president rents an aircraft, apart from paying the rent, he would also have to cover fuel and all the costs associated with maintaining that aircraft during the time he is using it. By not doing so, the president is saving public funds, he explained. His clarification comes amid concerns raised by the minority in parliament and policy think tank Imani Africa regarding the president's use of the private jet for official trips, including his recent visit to South Korea.
Now, on the business desk this morning, the Ghana Airports Company Limited has terminated its fixed-base operation FBO agreement with McDan Aviation Handling Services Limited following a prolonged dispute over unpaid license fees, rent, and royalties at Accra International Airport in Accra.
The agreement, signed in August 2022, granted McDan Aviation the license to provide fixed-based operation services at designated areas within Terminal 1 of the airport. Under the terms of the agreement, the company was required to pay license fees, royalties, and rent to GACL. However, according to GACL, McDan Aviation began defaulting on its payment obligations shortly after the agreement took effect in 2022. The airport operator said that after several unsuccessful attempts to recover the outstanding debt, access to Terminal 1 was restricted in late 2024. McDan Aviation subsequently settled arrears covering the period from 2022 to 2024, which led to the reopening of the terminal for its operations. Despite clearing those arrears, GACL said the company again accumulated significant debt due to continued non-payment. The airport authority indicated that no payments were received for rent and royalties throughout 2025, while the operating license fee due since 2022 also remained outstanding. In line with the agreement, which requires a 90-day notice period before termination, GACL said it formally notified McDan Aviation on January 10, 2025, to settle the outstanding debt. The company said 3 additional reminders were issued throughout 2025, urging the firm to meet its financial obligations. During the period, Magdan Aviation reportedly proposed a payment plan and issued 3 post-dated checks. However, before the checks were due to be presented, the company asked GACL not to deposit them, citing financial constraints. GACL said it issued another notice in November 2025, reminding the company of its continuing default. Following the lapse of the required notice period and several reminders, the airport operator formally terminated the FBO agreement with Magdan Aviation on January 16, 2026. After the termination, GACL wrote to the company clarifying that any payments made afterwards would be treated strictly as settlement of outstanding debts and would not amount to reinstatement of the agreement. On February 9, 2026, GACL secured and locked up Terminal 1 and subsequently directed Magdan Aviation to remove its belongings from the premises within 7 days, in accordance with the termination clauses of the contract. The airport authorities said several reminders were sent for the removal of the items, but no response was received.
Now, from the business desk, let's go to the international front, where a Chinese national has been arrested in Kenya's main airport, accused of attempting to smuggle more than 2,000 Queen Garden ants out of the country.
Zan Kekan was intercepted during a security check at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, JKIA, in the capital Nairobi, after authorities discovered a large consignment of live ants in his luggage bound for China. He has yet to respond to the accusation, but investigators said in court that he was linked to an anti-trafficking network that was broken up in Kenya last year. The ants are protected by international biodiversity treaties, and their trade is highly regulated. Last year, the Kenya Wildfire Service warned of a growing demand for garden ants, scientifically known as mesocephalots, in Europe and Asia, where collectors keep them as pets. A state prosecutor told the court on Wednesday, March 12, that Zan had packed some ants in test tubes, while others were concealed in tissue paper rolls hidden in his luggage. Within his personal luggage, there was found 1,948 garden ants packed in specialized test tubes, prosecutor Alan Mulama told the court. A further 300 live ants were recovered concealed in 3 rolls of tissue paper within the luggage, he added. The prosecutor asked the court to allow the suspect's electronic devices, phone and laptop to be forensically examined. Duncan Juma, a senior KWS official, told the BBC that more arrests were expected as investigators widened their probe into other Kenyan towns where ant harvesting was suspected to be ongoing. Last May, a Kenyan court sentenced 4 men to 1 year in prison or a fine of $7,700 for trying to smuggle thousands of live queen ants out of the country in a first-of-its-kind case. The 4 suspects, 2 Belgians, a Vietnamese and a Kenyan, had pleaded guilty to the charges after their arrest in what the KWS described as a coordinated intelligence-led operation. The Belgians told the court that they were collecting the highly sought-after ants as a hobby and didn't think it was illegal.
All right, so we're moving away from that. We're going to the weather center. I'll bring you the weather and its update, brought to you in association with the Ghana Meteorological Agency. On the weather update this morning, the next 24-hour impactful weather update is brought to you in association with the Ghana Meteorological Agency. Partly cloudy conditions will dominate the country this morning, with mist and fog patches forming over the coastal, forest and hilly areas during the early hours. As the day progresses, bright and sunny weather will prevail across all sectors. However, from late afternoon into the evening, thunderstorms or rains are likely to affect parts of the middle, transition and northern sectors. Slightly hazy conditions will persist over the extreme northern portions of the country throughout the forecast period. Now let's take the temperatures for the next 24 hours. A coast a minimum of 24 degrees, maximum 34. Forest, 23 degrees Celsius maximum, a minimum, maximum 35. Transition, 22 degrees, minimum, maximum 36. Northern, minimum of 26 degrees, maximum of 40 degrees. And that does it for the update from the Weather Center. But before we take leave of you, a second look at the stories making headlines.
President Mahama to receive honorary degree from South Korea's Yonsei University. In business, GACL terminates Magdan Aviation FBO deal over unpaid debt. And on the international front, Chinese national arrested over attempt to smuggle 2,000 queen ants from Kenya.
And that's how we end this morning's news at AT6 live and direct from our studios on the 10th Avenue Extension, Great Estate. The news was also live on our social media handles, MBN360. For more news, log on to MBN360. My name is El Samuels. Up next is a sports update. Stay with us.